bull market might continue, so now 𝘏𝐫𝑍𝒐𝒑 can talk about BEPRO again. Everybody loves Cardano! All right, hey, this will be a video about BEPRO price action without any fundamental talk, so that you know what I would be looking for in specific regard to BEPRO's challenges to rise higher. And this video won't cover what I think and when necessarily that'll happen, even though I might mention it, but that is not the important part. I'm trying to give you the tools to be seeing as price goes along when it touches certain points, how you can expect a reaction to those levels, and perhaps know when to, help you with your accumulation efforts or whatever your plans are with BEPRO. Here's the path forward. So here we go. I'm on the weekly scale, and if I zoom out, I would suggest on your BEPRO chart, you set up something similar to what I have here. It's really not that difficult. Your starting point would probably be, you might actually go to the 4 hour for a starting point, but, so you can, maybe not the daily. You'd want to, as long as you connect one line, the rest, get one line right, it'll connect the rest. So I would make the first diagonal line go with these two lows here, which are January 15th and January 30th of 2020. Mixed with those highs here, mixed with that high here, and that high there. See how it connects to like pretty much the most important support? So this line is going to be really important moving forward. That's like, I'm going to make that one the thickest, I think. That looks like a hyper, really important one. So let's do that. And then you just make parallel lines to that, trying to get them to connect something with points of resistance and support. And sometimes you just got to zoom in, like this next line down, you just, start it somewhere and, maybe even try to make it align with this up higher than what I had it and see if that makes sense once it's parallel. Well, sort of makes sense. I think it looked better where I had it, so I will move it back down, and I have this next line down connecting, essentially going through this support zone and creating that support zone right here. And then, so that'd be the first thing I do, because I think these lines are going to mean something, just like they mean something on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think BEPRO's origin lines are starting to shape up. They could, end up being modified later, but they're shaping up right now. So start back on the weekly. I guess the second thing would be go back to the weekly after you have these lines drawn. And again, they don't have to be exactly mine. They just have to match up with a lot of support and resistance on the daily chart. Okay, so all of these lines here, blue, red, and yellow, they're going to be pretty severe obstacles getting past those. So you can see here, as BEPRO went down and down and down and down to the depths of wherever, the 10 was its obstacle. And then when it passed the 10, see how many weeks? See how many weeks the 21 was an obstacle, even though it was right there? That's a month and a half. That's 6 weeks. Yeah, 6.5 weeks. All right, so, and on top of that, not only will we have the red and the yellow coming here, in which price might come above and then get stuck there, but you're also going to have the weekly 55 right there. So you're going to have a ton of challenge really early on BEPRO, because it started correcting relatively much sooner than the majority of the crypto market, right? So BEPRO blew off in the middle of March. Most other coins went down in April/May when Bitcoin did its thing, especially after Ethereum's run, like completely manipulated run to the top. So May, yeah, middle of May. So it was a month earlier. So with that, BEPRO could be one of those first to get their correction really going, because its correction is so much more mature relative to most other coins that have fallen with Bitcoin in this market. And BEPRO has already made it 92% down. So that's good news. All right, let me make sure you can actually see that. Oh yeah, just shift and click. Thank you for whoever said that. That does save me a lot of time. Really, guy? Gonna do that again? Why is it making it so I can't see it? It's ridiculous. never done this before. Maybe because I'm doing it from... whatever. It's a 92% correction. I have no idea why it's getting stuck up here. My trading views... Oh, it just updated. Might be an update quirk. Anyway, so it's already done a 92-95% drop. That's about the right time from a rule of thumb perspective. So 92.5%, something to that effect. So the thing is, though, since it has corrected so early and it's so mature in its correction relative to most cryptos, even relative to Bitcoin, its obstacles are going to be relatively much lower and more upfront. So it might look like some cryptos whose correction is less mature, these things are up higher relative, to their top bottom price action. It's, it would be closer to the middle here. And so BEPRO might appear not to be a first mover, but once it passes these, it might start screaming as all the other coins then get to those obstacles and could make BEPRO a first mover whenever this happened. And I'm not saying even in August. I would guess October, honestly. So I don't think this is like weeks away, but this is in the upcoming months what to look out for. I think that's how it's going to play out. Similar to how I was thinking, Bitcoin won't do anything until Ethereum catches up and gets on the same level. Bitcoin didn't do anything until Ethereum tested the bottom of its triangle the third time. Bitcoin did not do anything until Ethereum was also under its 200 daily exponential moving average, right? Just kind of like making guesses about how the market's going to go down, up and above just typical analysis of a chart. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now. I foresee that sort of thing happening where BEPRO might look like a dog trying to get above, let's say, 0.006 even. And it might battle quite a bit there. But once it does, I think it's going to really fly up and maybe even have like a 100% day after it can close above here and maybe test it as support or something. I think you're going to have a massive candle from roughly, let's say, 0.006 to a penny. It's going to be a big day. So maybe a 70... I bet a big day would happen to really blast off after the achievement of securely getting above all these and closing above them with confidence. And so from here on, I think BEPRO will have larger steps up than a lot of other cryptos because they will be not as mature of a formation or correction as BEPRO's. Okay, so that's the first big observation. So if you feel that BEPRO's being a dog, well, there's a dang good reason, and this could take till October. And what could happen in order for BEPRO to do this? It might do something exactly like it's already done before under the 4-hour 200 EMA, which is, I showed in one of my recent BEPRO upload from the community, taking a fractal from until it came up. So you see how I took a fractal from when it came below the orange line, right? Which is the 4-hour 200. So watch. And again, I am stretching it, moving a little bit, but just to show you that BEPRO has moved just like this before. And it could end up happening something similar. Again, even though I don't think TradingView is going to let me do what I want to do here. I want it somewhere in the middle right there. Something like that. So I wouldn't guess come all the way down to here. But what could happen is if it's stretched out, it could come all the way over to that line, but still stay above 0.002. So watch this. So if it takes a while to get there and keeps moving down until middle of August, so this is only the middle of August, folks. If it touches that bottom line, which is the parallel line of the bottom over here, price wouldn't be much lower than what it was over here at 0.002. I mean, it's still 0.002. So BEPRO could continue to go sideways and down all the way over to this line to drag down farther those weekly EMAs, so it has actually an easier chance to get above it as opposed to being a dog. But either way, as Bitcoin and the market starts moving up, BPRO might do this and look like a dog at first and then really blast through. So it could come in a couple of forms. So BPRO could, instead of doing this fractal here, it could look like a dog at first in a different way, is going like this and not being able to get past much, right? And consolidating under here instead of dragging it. So in this case, it wouldn't be dragging it down. It would allow those to catch up while it's forming a base right under them. So those are the two ways that I think BPRO at first, if this relief rally, ends up being an actual relief rally and gets out of the triangle, goes on for a couple weeks, I think these are two of the things that could play out right here. Okay, so moving forward though, let's say Bitcoin though, over the next few months, does something to the effect of comes up to, let's say it gets all the way up to, 47, and then comes slamming back down to 33. Okay, so what would happen to BPRO in that case? And that's a really probable scenario. So what would the implications of that be on BPRO? Well, they're probably pretty big implications, but it'll still make sense on BPRO's chart. So I'm going to go back to, let's do the daily. So we haven't even gotten into horizontals yet, right? So these are just like weekly EMAs. So I would suspect that would be related to BPRO coming up to its maybe even daily 200 or its weekly 21, and then coming back down to base on the weekly 10 or whatever's low, or getting rejected by the 55, coming back down to base on the weekly 10, and then coming up. So let's take these off and see if that would make sense on the weekly scale, or if it's like too short of a time frame, if the 10 can't actually move that fast. So the 10 like this, and that actually seems to align. So passing the 10, getting rejected by the 21, coming back down on the 10, which should be here by that time. Almost the exact time I was drawing. See how that red line would go like this? Come above, come back down. So over the weeks, if Bitcoin goes up to 48K, slams down to 35, I think that BPRO would make a higher low. Or dip down below here and make a higher low here. So low, low, higher low. I still think it would. And that would be your time if the market did start turning around at BPRO's higher low and Bitcoin's higher low, supposedly by August, September. That might be a good timer for you. So independent of the whole market, which is not how you should be viewing BPRO, but just looking at BPRO's charts, other things to be looking out for here. So we've already done the weekly EMAs. The daily 200 might align with one of those weekly EMAs, making it even more of a more challenging thing to pass. So let's go back to the week, see what this aligns with. So the weekly 21. So the weekly 21 aligns with the daily 200. That's going to be really hard to pass. So you might want to make note of that. The weekly 21 is going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big, big deal for BPRO. All right. And it's probably going to get rejected the first week or first 2 to 3 tries it tries to get above there. So let's say after that blast off, which could be October, November, BPRO finally breaks above its weekly 21. I'm not saying it's going to be super soon. BPRO can go like this for, until September and then break through after the 21's way over here, right? So that it could play out just like that. But when BPRO does close a weekly candle above its 21 EMA, okay, then you're going to be playing with mostly horizontals because it's going to be above these moving averages, which have yet to curl back around, even though the 10 would be the first to curl back around. And so after it passes these, you're going to want to see BPRO base on the weekly 10 when it comes down, when it retraces down. And any retracement down, you really want to be focused on the weekly 10 once BPRO gets that nice push up above the 21, okay? So then those might be good, points to chip in more each time BPRO proves itself on the 10 EMA after blasting up here. Okay, I proved myself, boom. I proved myself, boom, on its journey up to pass these horizontals. So I'm going to take all these off. Now we're going to focus on after BPRO closes a week above the 21. The only EMA that I would focus on would be the weekly 10 after that. And maybe like the daily 10 as well. The daily 10 is always important. But from a weekly move standpoint, this weekly 10 if BPRO comes like this, goes like this, and comes up, this weekly 10 is going to, curl back around and go do something like that. Okay. All right. And so what does this mean for price action as you draw in these horizontals? Well, you're going to see that BPRO has a lot of work to do. And a lot of these horizontals are based off the 4-hour because it's such a young asset that the weekly doesn't really have, it doesn't show the resistance points very well outside of maybe this one is a weekly resistance. These might not count for much resistance. This one will be pretty hard to get past as well. So right at a penny, which is why I'm thinking that once BPRO closes above the 21, I think it's going to blast all the way to a penny, then come base on the 10. And then what you're going to want to see is price get into a squeeze play between a penny and the rising weekly 10 EMA, and that's when you might get a pretty big move of BPRO, like up to 2 pennies then. I would guess that it's going to break through the 1.6 area pretty easily, and then come to base on it. That's how I would assume it's going to happen, but it could stop at each one. So just be very aware of that. So this penny level is going to be big, and this level here that you can see very clearly on the 4-hour chart, where you have support and then resistance and resistance exactly. That's the horizontal that I thought would hold up, right? And obviously that wasn't even close to being correct. But at the time, without a Bitcoin Wyckoff, play, it had a strong chance of holding up. Actually, statistically, a very high chance, but it was completely incorrect. As we all know by this point. So what I think I would be looking for after BPRO, so again, after it closes a weekly above the 21, is in order to pass a penny, price needs to come up to a penny, which will probably be in a blast off, come down, base, a few weeks around here, get squeezed out like a soap bar out of the 10, come fly past 1.6, get rejected by 2 pennies, hopefully base at 1.6, but it might come base a little lower, something like, it might come all the way back down to a penny, really. That would make a lot of sense. So one of those two would be my higher lows, either 1.6 cents or maybe all the way down to a penny. It could hold up on something like this at 1.5 cents, but I would say after it hits 2 pennies, I would fully expect a big rejection there. So this might be a box for profit taking for you, if you're at some type of profit from any BPRO purchase under 2 pennies. Okay. Wait for some form of higher low, which could be right back on the weekly 10, which might be up here, 1.3. It might not hit a horizontal as a rebase. It might hit the weekly 10. And then you'll probably get more squeeze plays with the weekly 10. So I should make this red. And I think the weekly 10 is going to help BPRO's price march past, if not all of these obstacles, really. But the key is, these EMAs are so low already that BPRO's going to have a hard time at first. But once it gets past, I think you're going to have a lot of squeeze plays between horizontals, that weekly 10, and BPRO price could really start charging up around the new year if Bitcoin takes about that long to be closing daily candles in the high 50s, mid 50s, low 60s, somewhere like that. Then BPRO can really start potentially taking off. And maybe be at, 3 pennies or so, somewhere here by the end of the year. I wouldn't suspect it's going to break all-time highs before Bitcoin does. But I would say this path of squeeze plays in the 10 EMA on its path up past these horizontals, I wouldn't suspect it's going to happen like where it shows here in October. I don't know if it'll be that fast. Getting back to 4 pennies, it might be May of 2022, something to that effect. So I want to be very clear with the time frame. This is not going to happen in a month, all right? I'm talking about a 6-month to 8-month time frame. That's what you're looking forward to. But, who the hell wouldn't wait? If you're buying BPRO right now, for example, 17x from current, not the bottom, from current price to its all-time high, 17x. Who wouldn't want to wait 8 months for 17x? That's just fine, especially in a crypto boring, winter type of deal. That's or recovery out of a winter. Like that's really good. So that is how I view the BEPRO chart. And again, step one, I mean, you're gonna want to see these diagonal parallel lines, because the horizontals, what you'll find is price might break through and get a squeeze play at the horizontal right when it's crossing one of these diagonals. For some reason, that's how price in crypto just likes to work, because most of crypto price over time is up. Therefore, the plane, like, if you're graphing something, x-axis, y-axis, the plane really is tilted up. So these lines are just like horizontals, right? But it's just tilted up, almost like the axis of the Earth. Like, what kind of degree is that? That might actually be, that's like 38 degrees, so that's a little bit more than the Earth. But, so these are kind of like horizontals as well. And that's why I said step one is that, because you're going to see a lot of interaction with it, which my analysis here did not cover very well, because I don't know at which points it'll reach those, right? But there will be some type of activity, and just coincidentally, I wrote in one of the squeeze plays that's happening right at that, but that could easily happen, if not have a high probability of happening as well, where all of those three things align. The weekly EMA as one, the parallel diagonal is two, and then a more classic horizontal is three. They're going to all align once or twice on this journey up as it gets past all these horizontals, okay? So that's what we got. And again, this is more of a mid to long-term analysis on BEPRO. I'm not saying BEPRO will reach, $1 by end of the year, and nothing to that effect. I would actually be surprised, personally, if BEPRO got past 4 cents before the end of the year. I would more guess April of next year at the earliest. That would be my guess. But obviously, since I'm a little bit bullish on BEPRO, a little bit, and I'm trying to accumulate a little bit more at these levels, I might cover it. I might cover BEPRO price action a little bit more frequently now, maybe once a week or whenever there's something to cover. When it makes a higher high on the daily and has an uptrend, things to that effect, I'll keep you updated throughout these months. But just know that this is a long-term analysis, and then I'll pop in with other videos after something significant happens for each step, and we'll see how it plays out. So see you later.